Hi, in this video I'm going to show you how I got to this final image from the original RAW file. So the first thing we're going to do in the development tab and the basic panel is I'm going to click auto, and Lightroom's brightened everything up so we can see what's going on. I can see that we're leaning in at the left and the verticals aren't correct on the right, so I've come down to the lens corrections. I'm going to make sure remove chromatic aberration is ticked. I'm also going to enable the lens profile corrections. Modern cameras it will pick up. This image was taken on a slightly older Fujifilm. I'll give it that prompt and it's filled in which lens I used and adjusted any distortion around the edges. So next I'm going to go to the transform panel. I'm going to hit guided, and this allows me to drop up to 4 lines to define where should be horizontal and where should be vertical. So I'm going to go on the edge of this post. I'm going to go on the edge of this window frame. I think these are quite good known verticals. And yep, Lightroom's corrected that. I'm not quite sure on the horizontal, so I'm going to drag one of those in on that edge. And yep, everything's been squared up. I'm going to hit done. While I'm down here, I'm just going to put a slight vignette around the edges. And if I recrop the image, that vignette will change and be updated. I'm also going to give a little bit of noise reduction just to decrease some of what's going on in the background here. Okay, now I'm going to scroll back up to the top, and the first thing I want to work on is the man's face. I'm going to select a new adjustment brush, and as you can see all my brushes are set to 0 apart from the exposure, which I've got all the way down, and the reason for that is as I brush I can see where I'm actually brushing. So I'm going to go over his face. I want to bring out all the creases and lines that we get as we grow older. So miss his eyes, make sure I get his ears. Okay, I'm happy with that. So I'm going to double click exposure, which will reset it to 0. So now no changes are being made, but if I move the mouse over the grip we can see where I've selected. I'm just going to raise the clarity of that area. I'm going to turn the texture up. It did get brighter, so I'm just going to drop the exposure just to compensate. His skin looks a little yellow, only a fraction. I'm just going to bring the temperature down -4 just to compensate for that. And I'm going to put a little bit of contrast up. Okay, I'm going to click done. The next thing I want to do is check the dynamic range. If I look at the histogram here, I can see I'm quite stacked up against the left side, but it is quite dark in the background. That does make sense. So I'm going to hold down Option. This would be Alt on the PC. For any other one-handed users, you need to enable sticky keys to be able to do this. If you're not sure how, I'll post another video in my channel. So if I click the black slider, you can see immediately pixels it's brought up, and anything that is black will actually be true black in the image. If it went to print, anything that is true black will just print as a boring textureless black area, which I don't really want. So I've reduced it as much as possible just by bringing the blacks up. I'm going to do the same thing with the whites. I'm going to go across to the right, and we can see where the brightest area is on his shirt. So I'm just going to scroll back down to his face. Isn't blown at all, and I can see around his shirt we've got quite a few little red areas highlighting where it's being blown out. So another new adjustment brush, and I'm just going to paint over the guy's shirt, making sure I get these edges and all the areas where we've got the red pixels. Notice it's on the seams, anywhere that's stitched. Down there. Okay, so there's his shirt loosely selected. Right, I'm going to double tap the exposure, which resets it, and then I'm going to bring the whites down. And as you can see, that's got rid of every single red pixel. If I bring the highlights too, it brings out some more of the pattern of the shirt. However, as a consequence, it's making it look quite a bit cooler, look a lot bluer. But I can balance it out if I go on the temperature slider and then take that back across. That's removing some of the blue I inadvertently just put in. Make it tint of green to remove the purpley tint that was creeping in. I'm happy, I think that's pretty much back where we were. While I was zoomed in just a second ago, I've seen these little areas of dirt on his shirt. We don't, strictly speaking, need to remove these. However, I'll demonstrate just how to do it. So I've gone for the spot removal tool, and I'm just going to paint over them. Lightroom looks for the most similar area that it thinks it can copy pixels from, and to be fair, it hasn't done a bad job. Okay, hit done. I'm happy with that. So I'm going to scroll back to the full screen. Right, his face is still a little bright, so I'm going to bring the exposure down so I've got him to a level of light. Just going to pull some of the saturation out of his face as well. I could reselect the original brush, but I'm just quickly do another one. The key to this is do everything, lots of little subtle changes rather than one big one. So use a number of brushes. So that's as it was. Just take a bit of saturation out of there. That looks better. Hit done. The highlights back up. Just looking at his shirt. That looks more natural. Right, I'm just going to ever so slightly do another little brush over this area of his forehead that looks quite bright, and the tip of his nose. I'm just going to give them a subtle 0.4 of a stop, make them darker. I'm going to do another new adjustment brush. This time let's go on his hat, bring some of this texture out, so round we go, double click the exposure, pop the clarity up, pop the tone up. It made the hat brighter, so let's counter that. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Just going to scroll down. If we go down to the HSL colour panel, we can tweak individual colours. So I'm just going to drop the blue a little bit, just to reduce the intensity of this shirt. I love the colour, and I love the effect, I just don't want it quite as strong. I feel it just pulls you away from his face a little bit. Right, next I want to darken all these edges down, make the background a little darker than it was again. Right, so I'm going to do this with the gradiated filter, but the key again is not to try and do everything in one adjustment, but rather to make lots of little ones. So I'm at 0.1, do another one the same, and I'm just going to keep dragging them over. And what's happening here is that one side of the filter the full adjustment is being made, at this side nothing is happening. So if we just keep dragging them in. Personally, I don't do them horizontally or vertically. I feel it's too easy to see them. Just keep varying your angles and build it up. Okay, so next what I want to do is lessen the impact of this yellow object in the background. All my other colours, I've got browns, I've got greens, I've got blues, and then I've got this yellow thing. So I'm going to make another adjustment brush. We're going to just brush over this yellow thing. Okay, double tap the exposure to set to 0. Now I'm going to make it a bit darker. Drop the exposure, drop the highlights. I'm going to take the saturation out, and I'm going to try and give it a bit of a green tint. Just basically remove some of the yellow. Made it a bit cooler. I feel that's helped. I'm going to click done. Still think his face might be a bit bright. I think that's better. Let's just zoom in and have a look. I'm going to press F on the keyboard. Okay, the last thing I want to do is crop the image. And I always do the crops at the end, and there's quite a good reason for this. So, first things first, I'm going to go to Photo. I'm going to go to Create Virtual Copy. And as you can see, it appeared on the bottom. I've now got 2:3 ratio crops. Now on the copy, I'm going to go to the crop tool. I'm going to go to 16:9 ratio. And I'm going to put the middle of his face on the vertical third. If I put his eyes on the horizontal third, I'm going to lose the top of his hat, and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to position his head there. Now the reason I'm cropping at the end is if I'd have done this the other way around, if I'd have cropped at the start and done this 16:9 image and saved it, and my local adjustment brushes were coming down to the bottom of the crop, they would stop at this point. Down here there'd be nothing applied, and then when I came and decided, oh, I'd like to do a bigger crop, I'd like 2:3, all this whole area would be unedited, and it'd be an awful lot of work, an awful lot of backtracking, and quite a bit of a headache. So at the start of the process, I have an idea of where my crop is going to be, but leave it alone, resist the temptation to crop early, process the whole image, crop at the end. So I'm going to click done. There we go. I hope this tutorial was helpful. Please subscribe. Thanks very much for watching.